Welcome to the Golf Away Tours Webcast. This month we have the great pleasure to speak with a good friend of ours over in England on the Gulf Coast, and he is the manager of England's Gulf Coast, Geoff Harris. Geoff, thanks for joining us.
No worries. How you doing, TJ?
I'm doing great, thanks. Well, it's good to catch up. Obviously, normally in normal circumstances we'd be seeing each other a couple times a year, but it's been a little while now given the circumstances. So we're going to touch on a few things about how things are there, but also just try to promote your area for golf because in my mind it is very underrated. I say that to people all the time when we have clients looking to go to a great destination for golf. Your part of the world has some incredible golf courses, and we want to touch on that and get people to kind of realize a little bit more about what's there. So first and foremost, I guess let's start off by a little bit about yourself, how you grew up playing the game, where you grew up playing the game, a little bit of history about your golf.
Yeah, so like most, I grew up in a place called Reading, which is down in the south of England, not too far from London. But I suppose like a lot of people, it was, a family member gets into golf. For me, it was my granddad. So I got my first club that was probably only about that long, when I was teeny tiny. Although back then they didn't.
And was it left or right-handed?
Left-handed, yeah.
Good.
So
fellow lefty.
Yeah, I'm left-footed, left everything. But so I had a dad who probably only played golf about once a year, and I was his passport to leisure. That all of a sudden, because he was taking me, play golf every week and somehow get away with it. So so grew up playing golf, fell in love with the game. Spent my childhoods just dawn till dusk at the golf club, traveling around the country trying to play. All the amateur tournaments that we have, and one of the great things, around the world, but certainly in the UK here especially, that some of the major amateur tournaments, both at junior level and senior level, you play on some phenomenal golf courses for nothing, so that was sort of the real start of my, I suppose, love affair with sort of learning about. So the club course I grew up on was a nice enough, but Parkland golf course, been around for 100 years, but it was only really when I sort of got to about age 15, the first sort of major event I went to play in was actually at Formby Golf Club, where I'm now a member. Was the sort of the Brabazon Trophy, the English men's stroke play, and that sort of piqued my interest for what golf courses could be like. It was really from there. But I'd always set my sights from a young age that I wanted to go to college in the States to play golf. So I managed at the age of 18 to go out there and did 4 years at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. So as long as my wife stopped listening to this, best 4 years of my life. It was amazing.
For most people, right? University years, absolutely. And then you've gone on to obviously work in the golf industry and now in the travel industry, representing the clubs and still a quite successful golfer, winning a pretty big tournament last year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. Well, I'm old enough for a start to play in the English mid-amateur, and for us, mid-amateur is over 35. I was fortunate enough to win the English Mid-Amateur Championship last summer. And the best thing is, with everything that's gone on this year, is it's not been held this year, so I get to hold it for 2 years, which is great. So
defending champ for a couple of years, that's great. And so obviously know the game of golf quite well, and it's great you've been working up in that area for 8 years now, representing England's Gulf Coast. And so like I said before, it's an area of the world that we try to get people to go to more often, and we do get a number of clients going there. But most people, when they want to go overseas, their first trip is, oh geez, I got to go to St. Andrews, and I got to hit the big courses like a Carnoustie or Muirfield, or I need to go to Royal County Down. I got to go to Ireland, and Ireland and Scotland seem to have this draw for people a lot more so than England, even though England probably has, I don't know, I think they have maybe 50 of the top 100 courses in all of UK Ireland. So the quality of golf across the country in England is spectacular. And of course, your area has a lot of the top ones. So you obviously have 3 open venue tournaments or golf courses up in your area as well, with Royal Liverpool, Royal Lytham and St. Anne's, and Royal Birkdale. So why aren't more people going there to begin with?
Yeah, I just don't think people like the English as much as they like the Scots and the Irish. It's probably the honest answer, to be honest. I was certainly living in the States during every St. Patrick's Day every year. Seemingly every person I went to college with had Irish family, and had this real strong affinity with Ireland. Even my Italian American roommate somehow claimed to have Irish heritage when St. Patrick's Day came around.
Yeah.
And obviously Scotland's got the pull of being the home of golf and, whiskey and those sort of things. But also as well, they have invested a lot of time and money over the years to promote themselves, as destinations. And, for Scotland, golf is one of their main tourism products. Whereas for England, it's a little bit different. It's more based around its cities and the city breaks that you do, and golf would be a lot further down the sort of, the ranking list of what's important to the government on and to spend tourism money on. But also as well, I think part of it is that, yeah, you're quite right. I think of the top 100 courses in the UK and Ireland, about 50 of them are in England. But the vast majority of those are semi-private members golf clubs with reasonably limited tee time availability. So they've never really needed or wanted to sort of shout from the rooftops that they needed a huge swathe of visiting golf, because in reality they didn't. It would have to work around their membership and only maybe do a few thousand visitors a year rather than tens of thousands of visitors a year.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. And so your job over the last little while has been to kind of open that up a little bit and allow for some visitors to come visit and promote the area to international visitors in particular. And so explain to us like how good the area is and a few of the highlights of golf in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one, I suppose, the easiest part of my job is that I'm confident that as a sort of week-long 7-round or 5, 6, 7-round destination, it stands up against anything in the world. In that you can base yourself in the same hotel, never have to travel more than an hour, many of them 5-10 minutes from your hotel. And in those 7 rounds, you could play 7 courses that are ranked in the top 100 in the UK and Ireland, 3 of which are Open Championship venues, which are also ranked in the top 100 courses in the world. And I suppose it speaks to the strength in depth that oftentimes when people get to the end of their vacation, when they come, they might have played 5 or 6 rounds. And actually, oftentimes, one of those open venues might not be their favourite. We get a lot of groups where Formby might be their favourite, or Hillside might be their favourite, or West Lancashire might be their favourite. And partly because they go in with no expectations, because they expect Royal Birkdale to be amazing, and it is, whereas the other courses they might just deem as the filler, the additional rounds. When they play them, they go, okay, this isn't actually filler, this is world class, golf that you're getting every day of the trip. I'm pretty passionate about it. It's all links golf. They're all over 100 years old. So much history. 34 Open Championships, I think, between the 3 venues have hosted, as well as Royal Birkdale and Royal St Anne's have both hosted the Ryder Cup. Southport and Ainsdale was the first club to host the Ryder Cup twice. There's so much history. And actually, my favourite bit, which the Canadians will really appreciate, my favourite bit of history is that I'm a member of Formby Golf Club, and our captain in 1901 was a gentleman by the name of Lord Stanley, who went over and was Governor General, I think that was his title, in Canada. And while he was there, he donated the Stanley Cup, which obviously now gets played for in the NHL every year. And so when you go to Formby Golf Club, you can go upstairs, and we've got from 1884 onwards all of the captains' pictures in their red jackets. And there he is, 1901, and you can get your picture taken with him. So,
great piece of history that is, absolutely. And so you touched a little bit on some of the other courses, and that was going to lead me into it. as you said, 34 Open Championships on the 3 courses. You've got the, Southport and Ainsdale, which hosted the Ryder Cup twice. You got Hillside, which has hosted the British Masters last year and some other big tournaments. If you were to not even put names on the courses and just somebody played them blindly, each of them, you probably would get people ranking them a lot differently, as opposed to what they're sort of ranking in the world is, because of the Royals being what they are. But those other courses, like, everybody that's going to go there is going to play those 3, and you have to, and it makes sense because you're going to see them on TV every 5, 6, or 8 years. But tell us a little bit about the other courses. Which ones are your favorite? Obviously, Formby, it's close to home for you, but touch a little bit more detail of the other courses and how you'd fill out an itinerary for. And they're all, as you said, side by side in most of them down in that area in Southport.
Yeah, so we're finding sort of like you said, pretty much every itinerary we'll do. Certainly for golfers visiting from the United States or from Canada, would big part of the itinerary is you need to play the 3 Open Championship events. And they are phenomenal experiences, both as golf courses, but then in terms of going into the clubhouses and seeing the history that that they have in there. And then if people are playing 5 rounds, then the other 2 they would normally choose to play would be Formby and Hillside, which are both, if ranking lists are your thing, both ranked in the top 40 courses in the UK and Ireland. Both well over 100 years old, like you alluded to. Hillside has an interesting history, actually. The club was formed in 1911, and so Hillside, Royal Birkdale, and Southport and Ainsdale are effectively on the same piece of land. There's a fence between Hillside and Royal Birkdale, and there's just a train line that separates Hillside and Southport and Ainsdale, and that's it. The Hillside used to play all 18 holes along some relatively flat land right along the railway line and back, so real traditional sort of out and back links course. But was very well renowned as a golf course, hosted some big tournaments. But then in the late 60s, early 70s, the local council decided that they needed to build a school in that area, and so they did the golf club didn't have a choice. They did a compulsory purchase order and said, right, we're taking this land, which was sort of all the holes that were out at the far end of this course that looped out and back. But in return, the council donated them some land which is on exactly the same dune system as Royal Birkdale. And so a guy called Fred Hawtrey, a lot of people might have heard of like Trump International. His son Martin Hawtrey has designed. So he set about laying it out. I think it opened up in about 1975, the back 9, so it plays on exactly the same dune system as Royal Birkdale. Greg Norman, I think, has said it's the best back 9 in all the world. It's got some phenomenal elevated tee shots, playing down with dunes either side, and offers a phenomenal experience. And then Formby's a little bit different. Like you said, it's my home club, but I try in my job to remain completely impartial. Not being slightly more partial, I would say Formby's the prettiest of all the courses in the area. It's a little bit different. Our club logo is a pine tree, so you're not necessarily playing through the trees, but there are a lot of the pine trees there's a pine forest surrounding the golf course before you get down to the beach. And but yeah, Formby I like because it gives you sort of a taste of pretty much all aspects of English golf, in that it starts off, you think you're playing a heathland course, and then 5 and 6 you think you're on a links course, and then all of a sudden 7 and 8 you play 2 holes that cut through the pine forest. But then you get up on the 9th tee, and then all of a sudden you're playing this classic links from elevated tee with the Irish Sea in the background, and you're definitely back on the links golf course again. So I like that it gives that sort of juxtaposition of all the different types of golf. And then, yeah, like we alluded to, Southport and Ainsdale, which is right next door to Hillside. History in the boatloads, but certainly related to the Ryder Cup. Hosted the Ryder Cup in 1933 and 1937. Classic James Braid layout, and again ranked in the top 100 course in the UK and Ireland. Over 100 years old. Some great history there, and again gives, much as it's next door to Hillside, gives you a bit of a different look, a bit more gorse around. So again, yeah, slightly. I like that all the courses are slightly different. They're not all, one and the same thing. And then sort of to complete sort of the list of the courses that are in the top 100 in UK Ireland would be West Lancashire Golf Club, which is second behind Royal Liverpool as our oldest course, dates back to 1873, and that's sort of probably the most sort of classic, sort of rugged links course of the lot of them. Always in exceptional condition, and certainly for those groups that choose to stay in Liverpool, it's 15 minutes from the city centre. It's almost a crime that so many groups come and miss it as part of their trip because they haven't got seven days to play 7 rounds of golf.
Well, and thankfully for North American groups, normally they are going over for 7 to 10 days. So, but it's amazing how many rounds, how many different golf courses you can fit in, play a different one every day, and all of them rank so highly. And like you said, give you a little bit of a different taste of what type of a golf England golf can provide you. And that kind of leads into, we talked a little bit about the locations of all the courses. And you mentioned earlier that you can do this trip for 7 to 10 days and stay in one hotel, which is really unique to a trip over to the UK and Ireland, where a lot of the courses in Scotland and Ireland are really spread out, and you do need to move around a little bit, pack your suitcase and unpack your suitcase. And the beauty of going to Liverpool is you can set up shop in either Liverpool or Southport, and only have, if you stay in Southport, heck, you've only got a 10-minute drive to most of the golf courses. So talk a little bit about where people stay generally when they go, whether it's Liverpool or the advantages of Liverpool, Southport, and also the experience of staying on site at Lytham and St. Anne.
Yeah, so I mean, historically, a lot of our golfers had always stayed in Southport. It's the nearest to all the golf courses. So, for example, from the centre of Southport, a lot of our guests would stay in the Vincent Hotel in Southport. If they come over to play, and you'd be 5 minutes to Royal Birkdale, 5 minutes to Hillside, less than 10 minutes to Southport and Ainsdale. So, you've got the advantage that, and even to go out to Royal Liverpool and Royal St Anne's, you wouldn't be driving for more than an hour. So you can do that itinerary with, 2 slightly longer journeys, but nothing ridiculous. But then the rest of the golf actually pretty much on your doorstep, which allows you the opportunity to really then enjoy, the process of playing golf and chilling out after the round, on the terrace at Birkdale overlooking the 18th green or whatever. And actually, the hotel's 5 minutes away. So you're not in any rush to get anywhere. You don't need to get to another hotel and unpack and all of that. You're there, so you can actually really enjoy not only the experience of being in these clubs and playing these golf courses, but then also actually enjoy the experience of being there with your friends. And actually, because obviously if you're a group of 12 guys, you've only played with 3 of the other guys that day, so it gives you a chance to catch up with everyone else and relax, and there's no time pressures. And Southport's a great sort of town right on the beach. But certainly it's got a great selection of bars and restaurants, certainly enough if you're basing yourself there for a week that you can, get a good feed every night. So we get a lot of our groups stay there, but then we'll also get a lot of groups that will choose to try and get the best of both worlds and base themselves in Liverpool. Whereas you're putting in a slightly longer drive to get to the golf courses every day, but still nothing really more than an hour. And again, like I mentioned earlier, like West Lancashire would only be 15 minutes, and Thornby's probably only about 30 minutes out of the city centre, so nothing ridiculous. But then you get the advantage of being in a, sort of cosmopolitan, great city that has so much to offer. As an Everton fan, I'll gloss over football at the moment, but obviously 2 Premier League sides that you, at the right time of year, try and go and watch, and certainly at the wrong time of year, still go and do a stadium tour and see a lot of the history there. But also, obviously, one of the most famous things to come out of Liverpool was the Beatles. And as a city, they do their history really well when it comes to music and the Beatles. The Cavern Club, where the Beatles played 183 times, I think it is, you can still go there and have a pint and listen to live music every day from midday. And I always sort of give that thing of, you can go and play these amazing golf courses, these amazing open venues, and you've had to pay a green fee to go and play them, which can sometimes be a reasonable amount of money. But also as well, you can only really brag about it to your friends that are golfers. Whereas if you go to the Cabin Club, it costs you a lot of the time nothing to go in, and you can brag to every single friend you have. So in terms of when you get into one of those sort of, I caught a fish this big, this big, this big, you can go home and tell that story to everybody. And it's a really neat experience. But also then from, a dining perspective and bars and all of that, there's such a wide choice of every type of cuisine. Always something going on. It's a really vibrant city. It's got 3 different universities as well. So even midweek, the city's still buzzing. And so there's some great restaurants and bars and great experiences to go and take in. So we certainly starting to see a lot more groups starting to do that, just because of everything that Liverpool has to offer, sort of off the golf course.
Yeah, I was very impressed when I went to Liverpool and how the city had a real good mix of the old and the new. They'd really developed a part of the city and sort of a newer architecture and fashion, and it had a good contrast. And there's just a great city to walk around, and obviously with the history with the Beatles and everything, it's cool, a cool spot. Most of our groups stay there, and like you said, it's still relatively close. But touch just quickly. We only have a couple minutes here, but touch just quickly on the Royal Lytham St. Anne Dormy House.
Oh yeah, sorry. So now it's often through necessity. In that, with all of our clubs being sort of members golf clubs first and foremost, but they all take visitors, is that weekend tee times can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. So often through necessity, we need to find a solution for getting a Saturday tee time or whatever. And the best solution for that, which actually can often end up being the best part of your trip, not an inconvenience in the slightest, is to stay in the Dormy House at Royal Lytham St. Anne's. So the Dormy House overlooks the putting green and the first tee. There are 16 bedrooms, all air conditioned, all en suite. You got your own bathroom. It's just as nice as a hotel. But the big advantage of Dormy House, well, it's 2 advantages. Firstly, you can access members' tee times effectively to allow you to play the course at times when no other visitor could play. So you can play Saturday morning from 8 till 8:30, which you can't do at any of the other local clubs. But also, well, it's the experience of the Dormy package includes dinner that night. You have dinner in the dining room, overlooking the 18th green, looking straight down the 18th fairway. The food is outstanding. The club claret is even better. But also as well, you've got the run of the place. It's a bar. The staff that are serving you your dinner, often you're the only people there. So you can actually really take your time, and sometimes people are a little embarrassed to be looking too much like a tourist and taking on all the history and stuff. Whereas actually you can really, if you want to, you can really geek out, and go and read every single bit, or vice versa. They've got an amazing snooker room where you can just chill out and watch the golf on the TV and play some snooker, and drink even more of the club claret and have a well of a time and stumble across to your bedroom and get up and have an amazing breakfast next morning and play some golf.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a cool experience, and I was able to enjoy it the one time I visited you there, and it was really memorable for sure. And so to finish this off, you touched a little bit on football. There are so many other experiences to do in the area, whether you're going to see a football match. And I had heard there was a second team in Liverpool. I didn't know really until you mentioned it, but I'm just kidding, of course. But Matt, as you know, is a big Liverpool fan, so we don't talk a lot of football in the office these days. Because it's a little bit annoying just talking about Liverpool's season last year. But moving on to this year, the first game of the year, we were chatting just before we started this, is my team, Tottenham, playing yours, Everton, the first weekend of the year. So we're going to have to put a pint on that one, I think, aren't we?
Absolutely.
All right. Absolutely. So next time we see each other, whenever that is, hopefully sooner than later, somebody will pay up for that match. It'll be fun to watch.
Absolutely. I think we need to do a bit of work in the transfer market first, but I've got my fingers crossed. So I'm hearing some good rumours. So always optimistic at the start of the season.
Absolutely. We're all tied for first right now, so it's all good. Great, Geoff. Well, again, thanks so much for doing this. As I mentioned before, it's one of my favorite parts of the world to go golfing and send people, and I'm passionate about it. I really want to send more people that way, and thanks for sharing a little bit of the information about it, and hopefully we'll see you shortly.
Sounds good. My pleasure. Can't wait to catch up soon, TJ.
Okay. Cheers, bud.
Thanks.